today from Gdynia in Poland, and welcome to the Impress podcast series, where we explore how research, technology and innovation come together to transform underutilized resources into sustainable food solutions. I am Dimitra Furkalidou from Reframe Food, and today with me is Julie Maguire from Bantry Marine Research Station, or BMRS. Welcome, Julie.
Hi, it's great to be here.
To start, could you briefly introduce yourself and let us know about your role at the Bantry Marine Research Station?
Sure, yeah. So I am the research director at BMRS, and what we do there is we have a combination of production and research. So we have fish hatcheries and we have seaweed farms as well. And so we like to combine the two, do some research and then take that to the next level and commercialize the research that we make.
That's awesome, and I would like to ask you how your work connects to the Impress project.
Well, we are part of the production of the raw materials, so we're growing seaweed, primarily kelp. So we have a hatchery, and then we take our seaweed and grow it at sea, and we have two sites for Impress. One is an Integrated Multi-Trophic Aquaculture site. So what that means is we grow our seaweed beside a salmon farm. So we use all the nutrients from the salmon farm, and our seaweed generally grows faster in that site. And we have another site that's just seaweed, so there's no fish beside it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then we give the raw materials to all the other partners who make interesting products out of it, you know.
Yes, okay. So from what I know, BMRS grows Alaria esculenta or kelp. Is it the same thing that you mentioned before? You said seaweed.
Yes, yeah. Kelp is a seaweed. So in Ireland we have about 600 species of seaweed, and kelps, God, I don't know how many kelps we have, but they're the big long brown seaweeds that, you know, that everybody knows that if you're going swimming in the sea in Ireland, you'd get stuck in all these big,
yes.
It's that stuff. So there's a few species of seaweed, but we like Alaria because it has the highest biomass. Mm-hmm. And we've also tried Saccharina and Laminaria as well, that grow quite well too, but not as big as Alaria. So that's why we prefer Alaria.
And how does this fit into the needs of the Impress project?
Well, because, you know, the seaweed grows really well in our location, and they were looking for kind of novel ingredients, you know, it was just a kind of a nice biomass to grow and to give to the Impress project. So, because seaweed is really healthy for you, it's a really functional food. It's got really nice bioactives. It's low in fats. It's got everything really, and you know, it's just. But we completely underutilize it in Europe in particular. But it's getting much more popular these days, you know. So sushi obviously is, everyone knows sushi, but that's a red seaweed species. So we just thought it'd be nice to use the browns more because they grow so well, and they're easier to grow. So, yeah. From
what I know, BMRS has applied to extend its license to include other species like Laminaria digitata. What are the unique challenges in adapting your current integrated multi-trophic aquaculture infrastructure for those different types of microalgae?
Yeah, so actually, since we organised this podcast, we've gotten our license to include this species, so that's really good. Yeah, and other species as well. And because Laminaria is another kelp species, we don't have to do too much. And as I said, there's 600 species of algae, and there's these little red seaweeds we want to grow. And to grow them, we would need to design a net system. But the overall structure is the same because you have long lines and buoys and anchors. That's all the same. So you don't have to do too much, which is pretty good. And the other thing is the seaweed grows from like October, November to April. So we'll be harvesting in April, so pretty soon. So it'd be nice to actually pick a summer species that we can grow all year round and use the farm over the summer. That would be our intention, and for that we'd have to grow one of the red seaweeds. But for laminaria, it's easy enough to convert, the farm.
So congratulations for the license. And I know that BMRS is helping in developing new fish feed formulation and performance trials. Could you let us know how are the ingredients derived from your harvested kelp being integrated into the new feed formulations?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So we harvest our seaweed in April and then we dry it. But also this year or recently we started to ensoil our seaweed because drying takes a lot of energy. So we can either provide it like as dried material and milled, or as a kind of a silage, like you'd have grass silage, which is cheaper to produce. But so because fish feed is, most of the fish feed comes from soy protein, which is a terrestrial crop, but most marine fish like protein from the marine, because in nature that's what they would never get something from the land. So so they will replace some of this soy with the seaweed instead, and that's basically how they make the fish feed. And the trials that have been done so far, because fish feed formulation is like it's at the top level. It's like really, really efficient food for fish at the moment. So all we're hoping is to match what's already in the market, not even to improve it, just to be the same. And it'll be more sustainable then as well, instead of getting your soy, which is mainly imported from outside of Europe.
Could you let us know what is the current level of resistance or interest that you are seeing from traditional aquaculture processors regarding the adoption of these zero-waste circular value chains?
Yeah, because seaweed farming is relatively new, I suppose the biggest pushback we see is for the IMTA side. A lot of the salmon farmers are afraid that the seaweed will harbour some sort of disease that the salmon could get. That's their biggest fear, and which isn't the case. So I guess that's the biggest pushback. And also, just the term aquaculture has kind of a negative connotation with a lot of consumers. So even though it's a completely natural product, we're not wild harvesting it. But at the same time, we prefer to use the term we grow seaweed rather than we farm it, so we don't feed it anything, it just goes into the water and it just grows naturally, and then we harvest it. So I guess, yes, the disease kind of question from the salmon farmers, and then from the consumers, they just like the idea of, just natural wild harvested seaweed. But we are doing that, just kind of giving it a little helping hand, I guess. So, yeah.
Could you help me with this thought, because I am not sure and I don't understand how come other people are afraid of it, of potential diseases? Why is this data-based or?
Yeah, not? No, it's just like the biggest threats, I suppose, for farm salmon. They're afraid of the fish getting a disease, and there's certain diseases out there, and they just think maybe that they could live in the seaweed and then stay there and then infect the fish. It's irrational, really, because the seaweed and the fish are totally different trophic species altogether. So it's like the seaweed would never get a fish disease. In fact, the seaweed that we grow, we've never seen any diseases or anything. Potentially maybe sea lice, because sea lice have a mobile stage in their life cycle, so they can kind of live anywhere. But that has some legs, but we sample our seaweed and we've never seen anything on it that's dangerous at all. Like quite the opposite, in fact. It's really good for biodiversity and it soaks up all the nutrients from the salmon. In fact, 93% of the nitrogen from the seaweed has come from the salmon farm and our IMTA site, which is a really good result for them as well. That they could, if they potentially put seaweed beside their farm, they would be very little nitrogen output from the salmon farm. So, you know, it's a win-win really for both of us. You know.
Okay, thank you so much for letting us know, because you know sometimes there is information and knowledge that is not actually based on data, and what you mentioned is really helpful. So beyond the technical findings that we have already discussed, what policy changes do you believe are most needed to make new guidelines for stakeholders in integrated multi-trophic aquaculture systems across the Irish algal sector?
Okay, that's a very big question. But there's a few things, like it's like at the moment you can apply for like a salmon license or a mussel license and a seaweed license, but you can't kind of apply for one altogether. So that would be nice, because we don't own the salmon farm, we just happen to be beside them. But we're quite happy to coexist, because we've been coexisting for a long time, and just from our environmental benefits that we produce, like terrestrial farmers get all sorts of benefits, you know, from Brussels, say, for any environmental adaptations they might make to their farms, but seaweed farmers don't get anything. So, like, it'd be nice if there was some sort of policy that we would get rewarded for, like, carbon credits or something for growing seaweed, which hasn't happened as yet. We don't get anything for growing seaweed. So but I know in the European Commission they do see the benefits of growing seaweed, because it will absorb so many nutrients. It's a great source of absorbing CO2 and other greenhouse gases, and it's a really simple solution, you know, to just soak up all these GHGs. So so that would be nice. Yeah, indeed.
It would be nice. Let's hope for it.
let's hope for the best. Yeah. Thank
you so much, Julie, for being here today and being part of this podcast and giving us your insights.
Yeah, not at all. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For those watching or listening, this episode is part of the Impress podcast series. If you want to find out more about Impress project, you can follow us on social media or visit our website. Thank you for joining us today.